Keith, welcome to the country. We made contact during the cannabis referendum because you had a lot of intel and advice for us, and we really appreciated that. Just for the benefit of New Zealanders watching this, tell us a bit about Keith Graves.
All right, so I was a police officer in the San Francisco Bay Area for 30 years. A majority of that time, I was working narcotics crimes, either as a narcotics detective or as like a street narcotic enforcement team. And being in the San Francisco area, we had every drug imaginable. I mean, just from PCP to LSD to obviously meth and fentanyl. I mean, those are the big ones, but we also had, just all these random drugs coming through, and I became very educated. I became what's called a drug recognition expert. And it's basically how do you recognize people under the influence of a drug so you can prosecute them for DUI or something like that. And I ended up taking that on the road and teaching other cops all over the country how to deal with drugs, how to deal with people under the influence, how to deal with somebody that is so high on meth that it looks like they're just about to explode, right? Taught them how to do that. And then eventually I got picked up internationally and started going to different countries to like your marijuana referendum, or just these different issues where they're trying to legalize drugs. Being from California, we legalized marijuana. They, for the most part, they legalized meth and fentanyl, and they'll say they didn't, but they most certainly did.
Decriminalized.
They made it went from a felony to a misdemeanor. Yeah, and by making it a misdemeanor, we had to site release them. We had to give them a ticket. Basically, you had meth, you had fentanyl, whatever. We'd give you a ticket and send you on your way. Well, why am I doing that? It's wasting my time because there's no penalty for that person, right? And so I went on the road helping other countries and other states help fight just the lunacy, because people would look at California and go, oh, we should follow what they're doing. And I just have to tell them, go look at San Francisco, go look at LA, go look at Seattle, right? Even though it's not in California, they followed our policies. Go in those cities and walk around. I have to ask you, do you feel safe? You have open air drug use, and that's what these people are trying to do, is they're trying to make these laws to because they think they have good intentions. Yeah. Or I think some people have bad intentions and they just want to legalize drugs because that's what they want. But to me, it was a very important fight.
So you're here speaking at the Drug Detection Agency conference, very fantastic group. And your topic is what's next for Australia and New Zealand. Let's just push Australia aside. What's next for New Zealand?
You've got drugs. All right. Well, first off, you have to look at who's bringing the drugs in. You have, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, I was in Queenstown speaking here, and we identified signs that there were Sinaloa cartel members in your country, just from us walking around and saying, and we brought it to everybody's attention saying, hey, you have Sinaloa cartel here, you're in a lot of trouble. And some people blew us off. They just wanted to disbelieve it, but
as in media or drug groups, legislators.
Some law enforcement members.
Right.
I don't really want to, burn people, but yeah, it was some law enforcement members kind of like, hey, mate.
Thought you're overcooking it.
Yeah, they thought we were kind of,
And when you say cartels, you're talking about gang cartels or
I'm talking about Mexican cartels.
In New Zealand.
And now you have Sinaloa cartel in New Zealand. I want to say it was like 3 weeks or maybe a month after we told government officials and other people who would listen, hey, we see Sinaloa cartel here. And you would think they would listen, right? We got guys from California that are doing cartel investigations, right? That we would notice the signs. I think there's this, we see it in some cities and I think New Zealand was kind of like this, where we're too small for that. Why would they come to us? Right? It's like, because they want your money and you're a market that's untapped, right? And so what's on track for New Zealand next? You got to look at where the drugs are coming in from, and that's the Sinaloa cartel. Yeah. And so Sinaloa cartel has a playbook, right? So they're bringing in fentanyl. We know that fentanyl is coming in here. In fact, I remember you had a number of overdose deaths here that they couldn't identify. And I'm like, it's because they're using different forms of fentanyl, right? It's just not fentanyl itself, but these analogs. And so you've got to worry about all these analogs that are coming in that people are going to start taking. And so a lot of our youth will go partying and think they're taking cocaine, when in reality it's fentanyl. So some of the other issues besides just fentanyl, the cartels are also pushing pink cocaine, and there's no cocaine in it. It's not cocaine. It's a pink powder, but it's got ketamine in it. It's got sometimes it has a drug called 2C, like the number 2 and the letter C, but sometimes they call it 2C, TUSSI or something like that, right? That pink cocaine is racing across the globe right now, and it's been seized in Australia. Whatever happens in Australia happens in New Zealand, so we know that pink cocaine is either here or it's coming. And so you have to be ready for that. And so you have to tell your youth, because a lot of times the pink cocaine is whatever the person that made it puts into it. And so it's a hodgepodge of, sometimes it's ketamine, sometimes it's fentanyl. You name it, it's in there. And so we have to tell our youth, like, when you see this pink stuff, it's not what you think. You're going to overdose and die from it. And we are seeing a lot of overdose deaths.
And one of the arguments that was made during the cannabis referendum was, and I saw it in the United States as well, is that if you legalize cannabis, therefore people will get off the hard drugs, the opioid disorders will go down, etc. I mean, that's just a complete myth, isn't it?
Yeah, it's BS. It's funny, the marijuana industry follows the same game plan. I was a narcotics detective for a long time. My first time I became a narc was in 1995. And I remember all I ever heard from everybody was, if we just legalize drugs, there will be no drug use, right? So California legalized drugs, Oregon legalized drugs, Washington legalized drugs. And what do we see? We see people fleeing those states. I'm one of them. My family had been in California since 1850, since before, like right around when it became a state. My family held constitutional office in California. They were, one of my great-great-grandfather was the treasurer of California. Nobody's there anymore. They all left because there's so much homeless, there's so much drugs, there's so much just disorder and mayhem. And California was a beautiful state, right? It still is a beautiful state. But by legalizing these drugs, and I remember the day they legalized marijuana, I was like, we're in so much trouble. And I remember, let me even go back further. We legalized marijuana, I want to say it was 1993 when we legalized it medicinally.
Yeah.
Now,
first step.
My mom, maybe it was a little bit later, 95, 96, somewhere around there. When they did marijuana legalization medicinally, I remember there was a guy that was pushing the referendum, and he was speaking at a college, and I wanted to go hear what he had to say. And he felt very comfortable. And I went in there and listened, and he said, we're going to legalize marijuana on the backs of sick people. And after we do that, we're going to legalize all drugs. What do? And I remember being in a state legislature, testifying at the state legislature, saying they've had this playbook. And I went down the list, and I'm like, we're at this list now, number 5. They're going to bring in a veterans who are revered in America, okay, military veterans. I go, they're going to bring in a military veteran that says he has cancer, and he's going to say, I'm going to die any day, and it's in, whatever. I go, when that person comes in, my question to you is, ask them how long they've had this diagnosis of, life-ending cancer. And I go, they'll have been sick for 10 years.
Right.
The next guy to come up to talk to me was a military veteran who came up, and you can tell he was like very, very bothered about talking. Like, he's like, oh man, this guy, but he went off his track, and he did exactly, what I said he was going to do. I'm sick. I'm dying of cancer. I'm a veteran. I need this medicine. Medicine, right? And one of the legislators, good on him, said, how long have you had this fatal diagnosis? And he's like 10 years. It's so predictable, right?
Yeah.
And people need to remember, out of their mouths, when this all started back in the 90s, we're going to legalize drugs on the backs of sick people, which you're doing right now. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to legalize all drugs.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where California's at. All I ask, go look at California, go walk around San Francisco, go to Oakland across the bay, and go walk around with no armed security, no nothing, and walk around and tell me if you feel safe.
One of the arguments they use is this drug testing, that it's better to take the pure drug than drugs that have got all this false stuff, synthetic stuff injected. What's your response to that type of, policy?
So what they're saying is, we want to make sure that they get pure heroin, not heroin diluted with fentanyl. I mean, that's just crazy talk. It is absolutely insane. And why anybody would believe that's okay. That's called harm reduction. And I assume you have harm reduction here in New Zealand. Yeah. Okay. Harm reduction is in California, Oregon, and Washington. We give people implements to inject drugs. So we give them crack pipes, meth pipes. And people will say, oh, California does not do that. I'm in California. We don't do that. 100%. I see it. We see it all the time. You can't deny it.
We have safe injecting sites.
And all you're doing is enabling. And when you go to talk to people about how to get off drugs, you talk about enabling people. You can't enable people to use drugs. Basically, they want the government to enable drug use.
Yeah.
It makes everything worse. And it has. And we have proof. California, Oregon, Washington.
So when we first made contact, it was when the referendum was on. By a smidgen, New Zealand managed to say no, despite a fairly strong media onslaught to say yes. We dodged a bullet, didn't we?
Thank the Lord you did. Absolutely, 100%. If I understand that now you have medicinal marijuana.
Yeah.
Okay. Their foot's in the door.
Yeah, that's right.
They got their foot in the door, and that's all they want. If I can get my foot in the door, then I can continue on and get marijuana legalized, because what they're doing is they're normalizing drug use. They just normalize marijuana use by legalizing it medicinally, right? And now that you've made it normal, people are accepting it. Now it's going to be easier for them, because it was 48-51, something like that, on your referendum. Okay.
Yeah, it was close.
You've got that other 2%. That's all you needed. They got their foot in the door. Now all they need is 2% to feel like, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Weed's been okay. We've been helping sick people. Why can't people use them recreationally now?
Although I actually think, my argument has been actually the longer the debate goes on, it's actually in our favor, because we're seeing the negative consequences in Colorado, California, Vancouver. In some ways, that's playing into our hand, isn't it?
I don't think so. So in California, we were the first to legalize it medicinally. That went on for 10, 15, 20 years before we legalized it recreationally.
Yeah.
And I know that people are seeing the negative effects, but that lobby is working so hard to normalize its use, right? And it's just giving them more time to make it more acceptable, because all they have to sway is 3%.
Yeah.
And then they will win.
Yeah. And the media are on side as well.
And the media is on their side.
Do you think it's reasonable, practicable to say to young people, don't do drugs?
100%. So I raised 2 children. They're now adults. And in fact, there's an instructor in there right now doing a class on fentanyl, and he brought his kids in.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing. I would bring my kids to my classes. If I'm flying to Washington, D.C. to teach a class, I buy a plane ticket for them. I get them out there. I want you to sit in this class, and I want you to watch and listen, right? And I tell them everything about drugs, how bad it is. When we walk, I notice the CBD here is changing quite drastically. And I remember
in Auckland,
yeah. I remember coming here 10 years ago, and it was nice. I felt very comfortable. And I remember people telling me, like, oh, K Road is so seedy, right? And I was like, drive down K Road. I was like, it's all right, I drive down there now, and I'm like, ooh, yeah, you guys have changed.
Yeah.
I bring my kids down there, and we go for a walk down the worst part. And I walk down there with my kids, and I'm like, this is drug use right here. And I would occasionally stop and just ask a random person that's obviously using, for us, it's very easy. There's people on the side of the road using drugs, right, in these bad areas. And my kids vividly remember this, because now one is 29, works in the tech industry. One is 25 and a school teacher. They're like, we remember you grabbing some guy and saying, hey, what was the first drug you used? And they were all surrounded going like, marijuana. Yeah. Marijuana was, and they would go up. And my kids were so fearful, right? The best thing is now my son is 29. He said, Dad, I had a nightmare last night that you caught me with some marijuana. And my son hasn't done anything, right? I mean, even his old man, he's like, you caught me with some marijuana, right? And you were going to get mad at me. And he's like, I woke up breathing heavy. And he's like, I'm a grown man. Why am I still afraid, right? That's what you
Deep
want.
seed.
Yeah. And I remember people telling me, you shouldn't be doing that to your kids. I heard that so much from my coworkers that are police officers. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that, right? I'm like, no, man, I'm gonna be very upfront. Why should they not know? I told them everything, right? My kids are drug-free. Some of the people that told me I was doing wrong, their kids are strung out on drugs.
Yeah.
So I know I made the right decision.
So what's your message for parents who are watching this interview? They're concerned, they're worried about the importing of drugs coming from overseas, and just the strong influence there is on kids to do drugs and being told, just do it safely. What do you say to parents?
Don't do that. Do not tell. There is no safe way to take drugs. Never. You need to tell your kids the truth. You need to educate yourselves, and you need to educate your kids and tell them, you know, what the harm is, what's going to happen. Go take them down to the seediest place you can find where there are strung out people, and walk down there and talk to them about, like, hey, these people were doing drugs. This is where it leads to. It's not hyperbole.
No.
I don't understand parents that try to normalize it. That is the worst thing you can do.
Actually, before the referendum, I went to Vancouver and I went to Colorado to just do a fact-finding mission to see what it looked like and to see what it smelled like.
Yeah.
And yeah, it wasn't pretty, and that was back in 2019. So I would say it's a lot worse. Your advice for parents: how do they counter the constant messaging that drugs are okay?
You just have to stay strong, right? So for the longest time, I was going around to schools and teaching parents how to deal with their kids with drugs and all that. And I told parents exactly what I just said. You need to fight it.
Yeah.
And fight the messaging. The parents that fell through with that and their kids grow older have told me that it worked.
Yeah.
That was what worked. Good. Right. And so if we know it works, then stick with it. Right.
It's not unrealistic.
No, it's not. No, I've done it. I've taught other parents to do it. We've all done it, and we've been successful, right? And the proof is in the pudding. My kids are successful. My kids are normal. They've got their own kids now.
Yeah.
And they're battling with these issues right now. My daughter went back to California. We live in another state now. We live in a normal state that doesn't allow legalized marijuana. I live in Idaho. It is the last state in America where we can still arrest people for smoking a joint. And I don't smell marijuana anywhere. I'm not a fool. I know there's marijuana in the state. I know people still smoke, but we don't have homeless people. We don't have these issues that all the other states have. And we have been successful in fighting legalized marijuana and everything else. But my daughter went back to California now as an adult with her own kid. And she calls me and she goes, "How did you raise me in the San Francisco Bay Area and keep me drug free?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Because I threatened you." You know, and
consequence.
There's absolutely. And I remember telling my kids, because you have to tell your kids consequences. Like, if you do this, you're going to get grounded for a week. If you do this, you're going to get grounded for 2 weeks. I remember telling my kids, if you do drugs, I don't know what the penalty will be, because I will be so furious.
Yeah.
That it's the unforgivable sin in our family.
True.
My kids listened. You're the parent. You're not their friend. Certainly you're going to have a relationship with them. I'm friends with my kids now.
Yeah.
Right? They look back now and they see exactly why I was doing what I was doing, because they're raising their kids.
You did just touch on about being arrested for using drugs. The argument is we can't arrest our way out of it. It's not a legal approach. We need to use a health approach. What's your response to that?
You absolutely can. You're never going to get rid of drugs, right? So when they say you're going to arrest your way out of this drug problem, look, you're not going to get rid of the drug problem.
No.
You can contain it.
Or any crime.
Yeah, exactly. There's still going to be murder, right? There's still going to be rape. There's still going to be robberies, because there's still evil in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. But arrests work, and I'll tell you why. I would arrest people for being high, put them in jail. And it used to be in California, you had to do 90 days because that's your time to get clean. People would come out and they would come and thank me, saying, "Thank you for arresting me. I was able to get off drugs." That was the best thing I could ever have as a cop. That made me feel so good. And we had it to where if you did your time and you, after like 5 years with nothing, it got stricken from your record.
Ooh.
Like it never happened. Wonderful. Now we've pretty much legalized everything. We can't force people into drug rehab.
And they don't want to go either, do they?
And no, they don't. No, they don't want to go voluntarily at all.
No.
And so there's no incentive. And so I give you a ticket for having fentanyl or meth, and I send you on your way. And I can't force you into drug rehab. You go pay your fine, and then nothing changes, right? But I remember getting phone calls as a narcotics detective, and people would call and say, "Hey, I'm in jail for a year. I'm about to get out. I want you to arrest all my drug dealers so that I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't have that urge to go do something."
Yeah.
Awesome. Who are your drug dealers? They're this person, this person, this person. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I would actually get enough information. I now can target who I need to target, and I would arrest them. I would, you would find them dealing drugs, and I would get them in custody.
Yeah.
I would get thank you calls from people saying, "Thank you for getting them in custody."
Yeah. Keith, just finally, I know you do work with churches. Is there a role for churches? I mean, because,
Yes.
churches want to do the pastoral work as well.
Yep.
They want to work with families. They want to work with users, addicts.
Yep.
So how do churches respond to this in an effective way?
Churches are the best place to do it because you have kids attending different church functions, right? Going to children's ministry. It's important that you bring people in to come talk, like people like me, to come in and talk about drugs, how to keep your kids away from drugs, what the current drugs are, and then to empower the children and in the ministry, in children's ministry. We have to talk about drugs, and we have to talk about the biblical aspect of taking drugs, right? Because when we read the Bible, there are so many verses in the Bible that talk about that viewing drugs is bad. In fact, when Jesus was on the cross, he was offered the one. Yeah, that's right. And he denied it, right? And we have to understand that there's biblical precedence about not doing drugs, right? We have to inform our children.
Yeah.
And we have to let them know. And most importantly, now they have a group of friends in that children's ministry that hold each other accountable.
Right.
Right? And we can go back to iron sharpens iron, right? And that's with our children too. And they can hold each other accountable as they grow old and stay in the church.
So the key is that churches need to start talking about this.
Oh, 100%.
Because I'm not sure they are they?
No, they're not. I'll give you an example. My church is huge. We have 5,000 people on a weekend. I've offered, I want to go give these talks. And no, that's not our place because they don't want to be involved in politics, right? And
politics?
Yeah, they don't want to, and many churches don't want to be involved in politics, right? People are calling me now a Christian nationalist. I got a YouTube channel where I talk about these things. And
that's to shut you down. That's to make you be quiet, isn't it?
Yes, that's absolutely what it is.
Label.
Everybody loves a passive.
You're protecting kids.
Everybody loves a passive Christian.
Yeah.
Right? And so they call you a Christian nationalist, this far-right extremist.
Because you're anti-drugs.
No, man, I love the Lord and I love my community and I'm trying to keep evil out. And it's infuriating, right? But every time, I want to quit, right? I want to stop teaching about drugs so bad because it's wearing. I'm coming up on 30 plus years of teaching people about drugs. It is, and I feel like it's been for nothing, right? When I look around, when I look at California, I was a narcotics detective. I was narcotics detective of the year in California. Think about all the narcotics detectives that are there, right? And that was one of the highlights of my career. Okay. But when I look back working as a narc in California and I look back, what a waste. I felt like I did nothing. But every time I get down like that, the Lord opens up a door, talking to you, coming to New Zealand and teaching here. And it's all right, I guess the Lord wants me on this path. And so I'm going to continue on it and still talk. And I know that I'm doing good. I know that I'm
changing lives one at a time though, isn't it?
It is. And I've had so many people I went back to California and I was walking downtown in the city. I used to be a cop and I hear out in the distance, whoop, whoop, which is the signal that they give for cops when they come in. And I was like, I froze and I heard my wife go, oh no. We're holding hands going for a walk and she's like, oh no. And I turn and I look, it's a guy I've arrested so many times. And he's like, Graves, where have you been? And I'm like, what's up, buddy? Come on over. Hey, he's not doing drugs anymore. He owns his own company. He's doing wonderful. And I asked him the same question. Did me arresting you have a difference? And he goes, yes. And he's like, and his thing is, we cannot decriminalize drugs because the only way we're going to stop is by hitting rock bottom. And hitting rock bottom is when you're in jail, not able to use drugs, uncomfortable. That's your chance to get clean.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Keith, don't stop what you're doing. We need you. We need your voice.
Your country is so awesome. All right. So
got some social problems. That's the problem.
It does. And I can see it. And I've seen it over the last 10 years. I've been coming here for 10 years now. I can see the difference.
Ooh.
And I see you going down the path of California. You have got to fight. This is such a beautiful country. You're the last bastion.
Ooh.
You're this is what I tell people, you're the last foxhole and there's nowhere else to go, right? If New Zealand falls, where's everybody else going to go? I mean, it's horrible.
Keith, thanks for coming to New Zealand.
Yeah,
Hope to get you back
absolutely.
again. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.